In this video, we're going to discuss various math functions that can be found kind of innately with C++ that are very, very useful. And so if we see for my program right here, we have a base, we have an exponent, and we've got a square. And so these two will relate with our power function, and obviously our square will relate to our square root. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to ask the user, enter a base. And there we go. So we'll read in the base, and then we'll say enter an exponent. I'm struggling with my semicolons there. There we go. Cin exponent. And then now we'll just output base to the exponent power is, and then now we can use this handy little function called pow. And so we'll put pow, and you can see that this takes a double x and double y, and so we will say base exponent. And now we'll go ahead and add an end line at the end here. And so we can see that if we run this by pressing Control F5, we can say, okay, enter a base, we'll say 5, and enter an exponent, we'll say 2. 5 to the second power is 25. Or we can also do 8 and let's say 10, and it's some massively large number. So let's do a little bit smaller of a number. Let's just do like 2 to the, I don't know, let's say to the 10th. And we get 1024. And so this is very useful because it allows, the pow function specifically allows us to, if we're squaring something, then we can have the base and just 2. But it's also versatile or generic enough that we can use any base with any exponent. And that actually includes, let's say that we wanted to do 9 and 0.5 to get the square root. And sure enough, we can deal with doubles. So that's awesome. So now let's take a look at, so that's one way to do the square root, obviously, but let's go ahead and take a look at something else. Cout, enter a number. And we'll go ahead and read in that number, and we'll call it square. And then we can say the square root of square is, and then now we can use this little function called sqrt for square root, and we will pass it in square. Add an end line, and we'll actually add 2. And now if we go ahead and run this, we enter a base once again, 5 and 6, because whatever, and enter a number, and let's say that I need to know the square root of, well, let's just take the square root of that number, 15625. And we find that the square root of that is 125. And so these are just two of the math functions that are contained within C++. And there are many, many more, especially when we pound include. There's a library called CMath, which we'll learn about more later. But just so that you're aware, C++ is absolutely great at doing mathematical operations, and even has things like pow and square root, and like I mentioned, other functions just built in. So feel free to use those, as they are extremely powerful.